How's it going, everyone? This is George here, and today I'm going to be reviewing Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. I finally got a chance to see this film earlier today. Been kind of processing it for a little bit after I've watched it because there's a lot of things on my mind. Now, because this film just recently came out, I'm not going to be doing spoilers. Maybe I'll do a spoiler stream sometime next week about the film. So this is going to be a spoiler-free review. And if I do get into spoiler territory, I'll give you a heads up, and it'll probably be like a minor spoiler. But yeah, this is gonna, for the most part, not have any big spoilers or any spoilers. It'll cover what we already know about this film. But in this film, it's directed by Peyton Reed, who directed the first two Ant-Man movies. Scott Lang once again played by Paul Rudd. This time around, his luck is better than it was the first two films. He's become very popular. He's seen as the hero of the universe. He's got a book coming out, but he's also trying to be a better father to his daughter, who he's hasn't seen in quite some time due to being stuck in the quantum realm after the events of Avengers: Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp. But when him, along with Cassie, Hank, Hope, and Janet, get stuck in the quantum realm, they have to face Kang the Conqueror, played by Jonathan Majors. And this is definitely a bigger, more ambitious film than the first two Ant-Man movies were. The Ant-Man movies, as I said in my reviews for those movies, have kind of been in their small little corner of the MCU, and they usually come out after the big event film of the MCU. Both Ant-Man movies came out after two Avenger movies that were pretty big. While this film wants to be as big as an Avengers film. In fact, Peyton Reed has even said he wanted to go for that this time around. And obviously, like this film doesn't have some of the things that kind of made the first two films special. Minor spoiler: the character Lewis, played by Michael Pena, he's not in this film. Um, you also don't have Cassie's mom in this film, along with the boyfriend. So, like, this is definitely a lot different from the first two Ant-Man movies. And this is also a film that's gotten a mixed response. In fact, this is the second MCU film to get a rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, that doesn't really mean much. Critics, it's all about subjective opinion and all that. But even audience members feel torn on this one. So, how did I feel about this film? This is a film that, I'll be honest, I am torn on. It's a film that I will say I enjoyed more than Ant-Man and the Wasp. I would say I enjoy it more than some other MCU films, but it's also a film that I feel like makes the same mistakes that other MCU movies made. Now I'm gonna get into why, but I want to get into the things that I did like because I did enjoy this movie overall. I did find it entertaining. I did have a good time with this film. And one of the things that I say this film did perfectly well with is Kang the Conqueror. Jonathan Majors was excellent in this film. He's going to be the big bad, and not just Avengers: King Dynasty, but for the Multiverse Saga. And you can tell that they really wanted to establish this character very well because this is also the first film in Phase 5. And Phase 4 was a bit of a slow start to this Multiverse Saga. He had some really good stuff, but for the most part, it wasn't that connected. So now you gotta start building up that hype for Kang. And yeah, Jonathan Majors was excellent. Kang's design looks great. The costume looks great. The backstory that we've been given so far with Kang, I thought was pretty well done. And yeah, I'm not gonna say anything about how does he compare to Thanos because we've only really seen him in this film. We have yet to see him go up against any of the other heroes and whatnot. But yeah, Kang was great. One thing I will say about this film is that it definitely had the best villain out of any of the Ant-Man movies. Kang a lot better than Yellow Jacket and Ghost. The other performance that really stood out in this film was probably Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet. You learn more about her time in the quantum realm. She gave a really good performance. I've always been a fan of Michelle Pfeiffer, and yeah, she's had experience with comic book movies as well. Batman Returns, she was Selena Kyle, Catwoman. She was excellent in that film. She was great in this film. Paul Rudd, Scott Lang, still very good as well. I would say in this film though, well, I've always liked Evangeline Lilly and Michael Douglas as Hope and Hank Pym. Um, it just feels like their performances in this film were not that standoutish. They feel kind of tame compared to how they were in the first two films. Like you can tell, like Hank Pym seems more relaxed in this film compared to how he was in the other two movies. I still like this character. I thought he was fine in this movie, but the standouts in this film were definitely Scott Lang, Janet, and Kang. Catherine Newton as Cassie wasn't a big fan of this. I know she was recasted into the role. I wasn't a big fan of her performance. I wouldn't say it was like outright terrible, but compared to the other performances, she was definitely the weakest in my opinion. Like it definitely wasn't anything special. And hopefully, if this character continues to appear in more MCU movies, hopefully Catherine Newton can improve on that because I think she's a good actress. But in this film, as Cassie, I don't know. I I felt like she was like the weakest link of the group. You also have Corey Stoll appear once again as Darren, who is now Modoc, and this was a cringe performance. Like the jokes with Modoc, I'm gonna say this: like the first couple times I thought was funny, but after a while it was like Darren, like everyone's just like shocked to know who he is. And yeah, this isn't a spoiler. We all know that the Yellow Jacket was going to be Modoc in this film, but it's just like it just kind of felt reactionary at this point, like characters just reacting to whoa with this character. And Modoc kind of feels like he's been Taskmaster Mandarin. Like if you remember Iron Man 3, that wasn't the real Mandarin. Black Widow, that wasn't the real Taskmaster. Kind of same thing with Modoc here. And I've never been the biggest Modoc fan, so like that didn't really hurt the movie for me because I never really cared about Modoc. I've always been more of a fan of like Mandarin and like Taskmaster, so like I might be more tough on those movies when it comes to that. But like Modoc in this film, I don't know, felt unnecessary in this film. Like, and the special effects, the CGI work for the most part. The Quantum Realm I thought looked excellent. I thought it looked fine. I thought the special effects work was a lot better than some of the movies we've gotten in recent memory with the MCU, especially Thor: Love and Thunder. But when you have that CGI head, you have this other how the Quantum Realm looks. It just like stood out like a sore thumb. Like it just like stood out and just didn't look good. Modoc, I felt like wasn't necessary in this film at all. And I mean, I get it. You want to bring back like a character, but like Yellow Jacket, I feel like was never that special of a character to begin with to bring back. Like it just like it was just like there, I guess, to remind people the events of like the first Ant Man film because a lot's happened in the MCU since the first Ant Man film. But yeah, that just didn't feel necessary. Um, I know some people have compared this film to Star Wars, and like I definitely see the comparison, not in the quality, but just like how like it looked. Like it definitely has like a Star Wars feel for half the movie, and I enjoyed that feel. Like it really felt like a Star Wars movie at times when you look at the setting, when you look at some of like the weird creatures when they're going into like certain places. Like it definitely had a Star Wars vibe, and they did pretty well with capturing a Star Wars vibe. Does it have the quality of a Star Wars movie? Well, it's better than some Star Wars movies, but compared to like the outstanding Star Wars films, it's not up there. I enjoyed the action. I thought the action looked pretty good for the most part. I think the anime movies, I think I've had underrated action in my opinion. So like the action was good in this film. I've never had problems with the action. And yeah, the setup for King, like I said, was really good. But the thing is that this felt like another setup film. And the MCU, that's kind of been a problem that I've had with some MCU films, that sometimes they spend half the film, if not more, setting up the universe. Like, this is good when it comes to world building, when it comes to setting up the next big threat. The thing is, sometimes when you set up something, it takes away from the overall movie. This was a problem movies like Iron Man 2 and Avengers Age of Ultron have had. And sometimes like that can help the film in the long run. Like I feel like I appreciate Avengers Age of Ultron after everything that happened in Phase 3, Captain America Civil War, Infinity War, Thor Ragnarok, and Avengers Endgame, because Age of Ultron was setting up those movies. So like I feel like yeah, the film got better after that, but you shouldn't have to rely on future films to make a current film or past film be better. I feel like that's something we should not have to rely on. To me, the best MCU movies, the more memorable ones, the best stand out when they're not focused on setting up a universe, that are focused on this very moment. Movies like the first Iron Man film, Captain America the Winter Soldier, Avengers Infinity War, Spider Man No Way Home, like Guardians of the Galaxy. Like those movies don't focus a lot of time or focus like barely any time setting up the next movies. They're focused on being the movie that they're meant to be right now. And to me that was something that I'm glad Phase 3 didn't do. And even though Phase 4 Phase 4 wasn't all that amazing, but at least with Phase 4 they weren't focused on setting up the next film. At least like they're trying to tell movies that are focused on right now. Like that's what they're focused on. And I thought Marvel finally learned that lesson of not making movies that are setting up the future, spending a lot of time setting up the future. This movie sets it up and it sets up Kang well, but sometimes it takes away from, still trying to tell an Ant-Man story. And I get it. I appreciate the fact that they're trying to give Ant-Man a big movie for once because he's always been his small little corner of the MCU. But you can give a hero a bigger movie than they're used to, but at the same time still making sure it's still their movie. Spider-Man No Way Home was the perfect example of that. Like yeah, like you have this like big event Spider-Man film. You have like multiple villains coming from different universes, other Spider-Man, but it was still focused on telling an MCU Spider-Man story. And with Ant-Man, like yeah, I appreciate the serious tone. The humor was funny at times, but like not as iconic as it was in like the first Ant-Man film. The serious stuff was really good in this film. I definitely think the serious moments they did very well. It's definitely the most serious Ant-Man film. But again, don't take away from it being an Ant-Man film just to set up Kang. It feels like this at times was more of a Kang movie than it was an Ant-Man movie. And yeah, I'm excited for Kang. I'm excited to see his future in the MCU. See like what other variants could appear in other movies. I know you got post-credit scenes that set up the future. I'm not gonna really get into those, and I have a feeling we could possibly see Kang in other projects before Kang Dynasty. But overall, with this film, I'm torn on this film because I was entertained by it. I find it very entertaining. I actually would rather rewatch this film than rewatch Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is definitely better than Thor: Love and Thunder. I definitely would say I enjoyed this film more than the Eternals. But at the same time, the first Ant-Man film is still, in my opinion, the best Ant-Man movie. Um, Scott Lang was still awesome as always. It was great to see, Michelle Pfeiffer shine as Janet. Kang was awesome. Most of the CGI, with the exception of the Modoc head, was pretty good. And I liked the Star Wars vibe that they were going for at times. Oh yeah, you also had Bill Murray in this film, but it feels like it's always great to see Bill Murray. I'm a fan of Bill Murray's work. He felt kind of wasted at the same time. It was like okay, he wanted to be an MCU film, but like this was like probably like a waste of talent, I would say. Overall, though, could this film get better based on how the other movies go? I don't know, but I don't want the MCU to rely on that. Don't like take a gamble and say, "Hey, the future looks pretty good, and maybe it'll help make this film look better." I like people are trying to make that excuse for this film, but it's like focus on the now instead of the future. Make like because if this movie doesn't turn out like all that well, and some people feel that way, some people didn't like this movie. I know some people like this movie, but if you don't like catch the interest now, then people may not want to go see the future. Some people might be concerned, say, do we really want to see Kang Dynasty? Just like make sure like you're focused on making a good movie instead of focusing a lot of time on setting up the future of the MCU. The next movie is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and I think that's the movie I'm the most confident in going forward in the future of the MCU, followed by Deadpool. Like just don't make the same mistakes they've been making with the overabundance of humor, setting up like the future instead of focusing on making a very good movie. This one, I don't know if I'm gonna give a grade for this one just yet. Maybe when I do my spoiler stream, like my review, like talking about like spoilers of the film, maybe I'll have like a grade because I'm still processing this film. It's not bottom five MCU for me, but for a film that they were trying to make like a big event film, not just talking like an Avengers movie, but something like Civil War or No Way Home. Like, it's definitely not up there with those movies. Those movies were a lot better. Um, but yeah, this is still entertaining though. I was still entertained, and at least like I think the effects are starting to become better, with the exception of the Modoc head. But yeah, don't expect a whole lot with this movie. Um, if you enjoyed the first two anime movies, I think you're gonna enjoy this film. Obviously, if you're not a fan of the first two anime movies, this film may not be it for you. It does take Ant Man in a more serious direction, though. So if you want to see Ant Man in a more serious direction, it definitely does that. And but overall, it was entertaining, but I'm torn on this one. I really am, and I feel like I need to process it some more before I give an official grade. But these are my overall thoughts after seeing the movie an hour ago. What are your thoughts on Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What's your favorite of the Ant-Man movies? To me, the first one is still the best. And are you worried about Phase 5 and the MCU going forward? There's some projects I'm not that concerned about. There's some that I am, but we'll see. Um, Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't. Please share this with someone that is an MCU fan that's looking forward to watching Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And hope to see you guys real soon. Stay tuned for the stream where I'll be talking about spoilers for the movie and go into more details about the movie. Take care, everyone.